Alright, so we'll take a little bit of thread sealer and apply it to the threads that'll thread into the case. That'll prevent it from leaking. Alright, so then fill it with oil. It's a lot easier to do this on the bench so you can have the case in this position. Alright, so we've got our 2 quarts of oil in the case, which is all it takes. So thread in the other fitting. And then the sight tube. Alright. Now, whenever it's set back level, there we go. So now that our tube, whenever it's installed, the case will be rotated and you'll actually be able to see the color of the oil and the level. After it's installed, we'll put a zip tie or mark a line on here so we know whenever it's low. Now for the shifter. We already installed the shifter housing, the extension tube, and the all thread. I've shifted the shift rails all the way forward into low range on both sides. If you see on the shifter housing, it's actually been machined away for clearance, so that on the 42RLE we can use this extension to move the shifter up here so that the castings on the transmission have room to clear, and our shift cable on this side will actually go into this top hole, and then on the output side it'll go out into the shift rail directly. So we'll start by taking the shift cable and our shift cable and our bracket. Put our bracket this way so that one cable will go here and the other one will go here. So we'll take our cable, put on a jam nut, and then thread it into the block. Put our star nut on there. And we'll take our other shift cable, other jam nut, put it in the top hole, put on the jam nut, and then thread the cable into the shift rail on this side. I found the easiest way to install the shifter cable into the shift rail is by putting a wrench on this nut and turning it, and the cable will go through here and actually thread into the case that way. Okay, once our cables are threaded in, we'll just tighten these jam nuts onto the shift rails so that they can't come unthreaded. Start the jam nuts onto the cables. And go ahead and tighten down this nut. And then what we'll do, with the shift rails all the way shifted in, we'll pull the cable, and there should be about an 1/8 inch of clearance between this nut and the plate. We'll tighten it down until it's just touching the plate. And then once it's touching, we'll go another half turn. And then tighten this jam nut. We'll do that on both sides. Okay, now that the nuts are all off of the transfer case, we're going to go ahead, support the transfer case, pull it out, and then we'll put in the Atlas. Okay, the studs we're going to install by putting on 2 fine thread nuts on here, regular nuts, not the nuts that come with the Atlas. Thread it down so that you have full thread engagement. Put a wrench on the bottom one and just snug them to each other so that they're locked on. And we'll put them in the holes. I'm going to put them in the far hole on all of them. So you just start one at a time. Notice I don't use the impact to go all the way in. I just get it snug, close to snug with that, and then I use the ratchet to go the rest of the way. That way I don't risk damaging the case by threading it in too far. Alright, we're going to put the range sensor switch on the front output selector shaft. So loosen that up, remove the plug, and put in the switch. This is just a switch off of a TJ, but if you buy the kit from Advance, you get all the plugs and everything to go with it. And you keep the plastic washer in there. All you do is just change the plug out for this, So it's in there and it's ready for install. And then we'll take the plugs. You've got a male, and a female plug. And so we're going to cut off the stock plug off of the factory wiring harness, put this one in, and then the kit also comes with a resistor that you'll wire in line in a pigtail that we'll make out of these two plugs. Let's take the factory plug, cut the wires, and do away with the plug. We're going to take these grommets that come with the plug and slide them over the wire. Alright, then we'll strip the wires. Take one of the plugs, and how this works is you crimp part of it on the wire, part on the insulation. So the wire is secure, and then we'll slide this insulator down, bend the tabs over. We'll actually kind of crimp them on a little bit. And that'll keep that in place. So now that part of the plug's done, we'll just do the next one the same way. And then these prongs will just clip in. And then this snaps down to secure it, and our plug is ready. Okay, we've got the Atlas ready to be put in, so now we've just got to jack it into place, slide it into the transmission, and put the nuts on. It always helps to route the cables first, because they're stiff. They normally don't go where you want them to. So that way, whenever you're trying to guide the transfer case into position, it's one less thing to deal with. You don't want to draw it on with the nuts, but you do want to put on the nuts as soon as you get enough threads there that you can have full thread engagement. That way it doesn't slip back off. We're actually just about a millimeter away from fully seated. There we go. The Atlas actually can be damaged if you draw it on with the nuts and the output shaft of your transmission is longer than expected. So that's why you never want to draw an Atlas on by the retaining nuts. They're just there to hold it in place. But normally if you just shake it like I did, they'll work their way into place, and they're not too bad to mount up. So now that it's mounted, we can go through and put on all the rest of the nuts and get them torqued.